Okay, here we are. We are kicking off this month's virtual tour of intentional communities. And I'm just going to give it a few moments for everyone to arrive, our Zoom audience, and also for us to get connected here on our Facebook live stream. So hello, everyone who is tuning in. Once again, this is our virtual tour of intentional communities. It is a monthly event. Sorry about that. It is a monthly event that we do where we get an inside peek into intentional communities around the world and across the United States and really get a little taste of what their community is like. There'll be plenty of opportunity for communities and really use this as an opportunity to, kind of travel to visit these communities while you still get to stay at home. So my name is Cynthia, and I'm going to be the host of today's session. I'm one of the co-directors with the Foundation for Intentional Community, FIC, the organization that is putting on this event. And we are going to start with Ionia community in Alaska. We have with us Eliza and Anne joining, and they're actually making time for this during a camping trip in what looks like some beautiful scenery behind you. So really appreciating you making time for this to be here today. And I'll just let you unmute and share your presentation. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Cynthia. Hi, all. It's a little strange talking into this screen because I can't see any of you, but all I can see is myself and Anne, but we will do our best. So I wanted to share about our community, Ionia. We've been around on the Kenai Peninsula in Alaska for about 34 years. And we were started by 5 families and then very quickly 4 families who really struggled with thriving and surviving in the modern world. And we had met through the movement called macrobiotics, which is really food-based. I call it a food-centric biological approach to world peace. And it's really about changing oneself and one's own diet in order to change one's family and one's household, and then eventually your village and your world. And and so food is a very central theme in our community. We're mostly vegan, and we're all really excellent cooks. The original families had a lot of kids, and they all grew up, and a lot of them went out into the world and did all different things. And then some of them have come back and stayed. So Ionia is currently about 50 to 60 people, half of whom are children. So we have a huge children population. We're very family oriented. All the kids are homeschooled, unschooled, various forms of kind of bringing our education home to the village. We have a lot of natural buildings and cooking and growing food. Our values center around everything from emotional health, social health, to planetary health, sustainability. And we're currently in the process of a big change. So we have a lot of kind of new leadership springing from all these new families that have grown up and come into the place. I'm one of the youngest founding mamas. Anne grew up at Ionia, and we're sisters. And we have a lot of investment in growing Ionia into kind of the next 30 years now. The community is small but mighty. We have a lot of social capital. We also have a lot of internal, intertwining. We're very tight knit. And we recognize that in order to expand out, which we're very interested in at this point, we're going to need to reorganize and restructure things so that we are more so that people can join, so that we can really, you know, expand out our community and our family, and like create a more I don't know. Yeah, community-based community, and less like just like the 4 families, you know? Yeah, and so we have a lot of people coming through, but we're very interested in, and we welcome visitors, especially in the summer months when we have spaces for them. But we really are interested in the changes that we need to make internally to really open up and create this kind of maybe even double our size, and get a lot more diversity going. At Ionia, we have a really good base now after 30 years. So yeah, we have a great slideshow, which I want to show, and then we'll just open ourselves up to questions, and Anne can help me answer them.
Right now we're on our annual camping trip. We take a boat across the bay from Homer, and we go and harvest a lot of berries and be on the beach together and get out of our routine of this community that you're about to see. So we're in a small town nearby.
Yeah. So we're borrowing a coffee shop's Wi-Fi. So hopefully this will work out. Okay, the Ionia community, welcome. This is our campus.
Bird's eye view.
Bird's eye view. There's 2 large community centers, as you can see at the top there. One's called the Longhouse Community Center, and one's called the Barn. And the Barn is a series of shops and a dojo. And then you see the houses around the loop. And currently we have about 13 houses. With big housing shortage. We need more homes. We're building homes every year, and we build them all ourselves with natural materials. So that is what it is. It's a wonderful and exciting and step-by-step process. Yeah.
We're building a guest house this summer. So that's part of the opening, of having more people have a place to be while they
visit,
checking out Ionia.
Yeah. So we're really excited about that project. These are our community buildings up close and a little bit closer. The one on top is the Longhouse Community Center. Of course, we live in Alaska, so we have winter here. And the bottom is the barn. This is some of our building projects. This is when we were building the Longhouse, which is a log building, which is the traditional way of building here in Alaska for us white folks. And the barn became our first straw clay construction. So it is built with straw and clay, local materials. And it was a huge, big learning curve, and now is a huge boon and really great resource for the community. We have a folk school starting up there, for example. These are some of our houses. This is what we live in. You have the traditional log homes and the newer straw clay homes here. Also, we live in teepees in the summer, and teepees was how we first came here. This is the inside of some of our living houses. Our kitchen, our pantry. This is how we bathe. We have our deep dish bathrooms. And this is the inside. There's a body shop. There's a carpentry shop. There's also metalwork. These are and our children, big part of our life. We have a birth up on the left-hand corner there. We have a lot of babies and little ones. This is our teen crowd. They're like, just, you know, wild, roaming, spirited young councils and crews. They need meet and conferences and forums and meetings. This is some of our R&R recreational stuff. This is some of our outreach. We're very involved in the local community, give trainings and wellness and peer support trainings and around initiatives, health food festivals and classes, cooking classes. These are our gardens. We produce a lot of food, eat a lot of vegetables. We are struggling with gardens and enjoying gardens all the time. We also harvest seaweed, wild seaweeds in the beautiful clear waters, actually right around here where we are now. And we love seaweed because we're vegan. We're very into cooking. We cook a lot of feasting. Yeah, we love our food.
Everybody cooks twice a week, once or twice a week, and the community is fed. It's really a sweet way to see how cooperation is really this abundance.
Yeah, it's a very luxurious thing. Yeah.
Making miso,
Miso.
bread, pickles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, video.
We have we eat all the time. We're eating outside in the summer. Bing, which apples. Berries are huge in Alaska. These are our rocket mass heaters that we've been starting to build. This is how we heat our buildings. These are some of the builds that are happening this year. Actually, this was last year. And we also have a small timber frame operation and homegrown furniture that are just belong to individuals in the community that how to build in these traditional ways. And we also have a pottery shop. So we produce a lot of pottery, mostly to the community.
Okay. Liza and Anne, your audio was dropping out quite a bit, but we were able to see, I think, most of those beautiful photos of your community. So I think we got, like an impression of where you're living. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. And I love the natural buildings and the gardens and the berries and the wildlife. And so thank you so much for sharing. And we do have some questions, so maybe we can pull out what we may have missed from your presentation through the questions. So yes, let's move into some of the questions. So one question we had was about your dietary requirements as a community. You had mentioned that you're mostly vegan, but I think some people who may have a different diet are asking if it's necessary to be a vegan or vegetarian or macro to live in your community.
I think I like the term plant-based, just that we are trying to eat a diet that is about just being as conscious as we can be about the food that comes through us and that we produce. But what people do kind of on their own is a very personal choice, but we try to give the shared spaces, we all try to honor what we can come together about what's good for the environment and good for the body. But then outside, it's kind of for people to do on their own.
Okay, gotcha. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Great. And then we did have another question about your COVID vaccine, if you're doing any requirements around that, or maybe even just, I would be curious more general how COVID has impacted your community, especially being what I always am envisioning Alaska is quite remote, but maybe you're more interconnected than I imagine.
COVID swept through our community twice now, and different people have, some people got vaccinated, most did not. We are not particularly worried about it. We feel pretty strong in our resilience, and so far are able to handle whatever comes our way.
Okay, great. Good. Any other questions from our audience? I could share with you. So I believe one of our community members, so the community I live in Vermont, one of our members actually, or neighboring member, grew up in Ionia. Marcus is his name. And so, and I know from his story, like he's one of the people who was raised in the community, but then left and had his own adventures. And so I'm curious if you want to share a little bit more about that transition. And I wonder too, like, are you hoping that some of these children end up coming back to the community? And just how are you moving through that transition that you mentioned?
The original families had many children. They're all grown now, mostly, and many of them settled elsewhere and are discovering, but we feel they bring the spirit of Ionia with them wherever they go. And some of them are staying and making their lives with us, and we're very grateful for this. They almost all come back to visit all the time.
And Dina, this community is Ionia. I'll put it in the chat. And you all have a website too, right? If people want to find out more information.
Yes, ionia.org, IONIA.org.
Great. Very simple.
Welcome to reach out, ask questions, visit us, or arrange to see if you can visit us. And yeah, we're excited to be more part of the IC community.
Good. We're so excited to have you. It's your community is one that I've heard of a lot and have heard all this good things and all the work that you're doing. So it's been great to learn more and see it through your photos.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so thank you again for taking the time to be here.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having us. And Cynthia, you should visit us sometime.
Yeah, I should. That'd be great.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good day. Enjoy and take care of your loved ones.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye. All right. Good. Yes, they're going to get back to their camping trip. And we are going to move now from Alaska all the way across the United States to Massachusetts. And we have Allie and Ellen with us to share about Tkanye Cooperative. I'm still not sure I'm pronouncing it right, but yeah, looking forward to learning about your community. So if you want to go ahead and share your presentation.
Yeah, so we're an interesting counterpoint to Ionia. Glad that we get to go after them because they are small and mighty, but we are even smaller. We're just one single house in the city of Somerville. So I think at our biggest, there were 9 or 10 people living here. Most of the time, there's usually 7. We, like Cynthia said, we're in Massachusetts, in Somerville, Massachusetts, which is a city that borders Boston. This is our street. Yeah, we're very urban. So again, another counterpoint, we do not have any bears or elks in our yard, only squirrels and cats. But this is our street, Walnut Street in Somerville. Somerville is the most densely populated municipality in New England. Also, it's one of the places where housing costs are rising the most. So definitely both out of necessity and out of desire, a lot of our community, larger community members are interested in living in more alternative ways. So we're only 7, 8, 9 people at a given time, but we do have connections to other like sort of co-op like houses in the neighborhood. There's at least 3 in our direct neighborhood. I went to a block party for one of them over the weekend. So it's been exciting to sort of build those connections. And 2 of our members just came from the Beacon Hill Friends House in Boston, which is another intentional community in Boston. So we're excited to sort of continue to make connections with other co-ops. This is our house. It's a beautiful, nice Victorian house. Like a lot of the houses in the neighborhood. Unlike a lot of houses in Somerville, it's just one single unit right now. It had been subdivided. Most of these like old big Victorian houses were subdivided in the 40s and the 50s, if not earlier. But when Ellen, and she'll talk about this a little later, and her friends bought the house, they reopened it up to be just one big house. So it has 7 bedrooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor. So 4 and then 3. We have a small guest room, so a small 8th bedroom. A glorified closet, but it has a window and people love to stay there. So if you're ever in Somerville, drop me a line. You can stay with us. And yeah, we have a lot of fun amenities. Like we have our porch. Porches are big in Somerville, and we really like our big porch. It's getting redone right now, so we've been really missing it because we haven't been able to sit on it. This is me and my partner having a fancy dinner night on our porch. We also have and this was when a local organization was doing a sort of walk around Union Square, which is the neighborhood where we live, and so we served hot chocolate in front of our house, which was very fun. And we also have a nice backyard, which is a nice luxury in an urban setting like Somerville. Our cats love to hang out in our backyard. This is Asha. Right now there are 5 cats living here. We don't usually have that many. So we had 4 for a while. So we have a lot of cats. They love to hang out in the backyard. Humans also like to hang out in the backyard. There's been some weddings in the backyard in the past. This is the most recent one. It was, I was actually one of the only people who was privileged enough to attend because I took the photos. It was deep COVID, and these were friends of a housemate of ours, and they got married at the park, but then they had their wedding party, just the 2 of them, the housemate, and then an additional friend in our backyard. And Ellen, I had to include this picture because Ellen made the little dolls that went on the cake. So the cats also like to hang out indoors, not just in the backyard. We have one of the sort of best parts of the architecture of the house is that the downstairs is very open. It's like there, I assume, used to be doors in between the rooms, and there still are doors in between the sewing room and the dining room, but we keep them open. So the whole first floor, we have the dining room and the living room. So there's some privacy upstairs in your own individual rooms, but when you're downstairs, there's lots of people and lots of cats to hang out. This is on the left is my kitten Pepper with our roommate Kevin. She looks very cute, but right before that, she was trying to eat his muffin. And then this is Asha, who likes to sit in our board game boxes when we play board games. I had to, just more cats. They hang out all over the house, in the sink, in our rugs. So as I sort of mentioned with the impromptu backyard wedding, during COVID, it was really great for us to have this small community because we were small enough to be a sort of singular bubble. So we, for a long time, didn't spend any time indoors with anyone else outside of the house. And so it was just us, the people that you can see, and myself. And having that group, I think that we fared a lot better in the initial time than people who had only one roommate. So we were very lucky to live in community. In this picture, everyone is wearing masks that Ellen and some of the other housemates handmade, which was very fun. I think you guys also made some and gave them away.
We did. But we did get very close during the early pandemic.
Yeah, we had some fancy dinners in our nice dining room. We participated in a Zoom, this is Passover?
Yeah.
A Zoom Passover. And here you can see how there's the sewing room, the kitchen, and it's all connected. We did sometimes leave the house. We don't have, any sprawling grounds because we are in the city. So we did sometimes go as a community. We went to Cape Cod.
Yeah, we actually went for a whole week vacation just
Yeah. Because one of the housemates, her family had a house in Cape Cod, so we were able to utilize those connections. We went apple picking. We love apple picking. And this is more recent. We went to see one of our housemates run a marathon in Newport. So it has been very great during these times to have folks to live with directly and to support our I don't know what the word is, adventure, if that's what you call running a marathon. A very impressive adventure. Those were our photos, but I thought Ellen is actually the founder of this. I guess that's true. You don't really think of yourself as the leader or anything, but she is the longest lived age-wise, but also the longest in this house lived member of the community. So do you want to talk a little bit about starting it?
Because it's the same age, I think, as Ionia. It was 35 years ago when we opened. And I'm sort of wishing that I had made some notes and that I knew where they were about what I expected to have happen in 35 years. Is the fact that this is still such a strong community. I find very exciting, and I'm not sure I expected it, you know, when we first went through this. There's been a tremendous range in how long people have stayed. So there have been a few people who have been here more than 10 years, either individuals or families. My kids were born here and they're now in their 30s. And there was another family that we lived with when they were young, who were also here a very long time. Their kids are now 20s and 30s. And then just a few other people who came in and out. And there's been many people that are here like 2 or 3 years. I think we have this, I don't quite, in terms of conventions and expectations, I think it varies a lot. So, you know, for example, relatively recently, we came up with an application for new members, which we had never had before. We saw it in another house and liked it, and it's been great. But, you know, it was sort of new when we instituted it. And I think there's a fair number of things like that that cycle around. And sometimes we've managed to have house work days, and sometimes we've tried and currently are not really pulling it off, but it seems like a good idea. We accept people entirely by consensus. So everybody has a full veto power, I would say. And amusingly, our last round took about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because we all immediately agreed, which we laughed at because that's rare. Usually I have to talk it out and talk it out.
Yeah, right now, a lot of the people who live here are like, and I think this is reflective of the people who are trying to move to Somerville nowadays, are in their sort of 20s and 30s. That hasn't always been the case, but
Yeah.
it is now.
I used to have many more peers.
Yeah.
Well, I started out with lots of peers. And the age, yeah, so now everybody is in their 20s or 30s except for me. And it could cycle. Last year we had somebody who was in his 70s, which mostly worked out well in my village. But so I feel like it could go whatever way. You know, it could be that we interview some people, could be we interview a family. We haven't had a family here for a while, but it wouldn't surprise me. We've had some single parents with kids. We've had some couples. I think there's a lot of flexibility in who's here and what we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we're such a small community, like Evan said, we don't really have a lot of strict rules or regulations. I would say the only one is that everybody is vaccinated and has to be vaccinated.
Right.
We do eat vegetarian, so like Ionia, though we don't grow our own food really. I mean, we grew a bunch of lettuce this year in raised beds.
Yeah.
The ground out here is too polluted. You can't grow things in the ground, but you can grow things in raised beds. So we grew a lot of lettuce. But we do, like, I would say the main time that we all spend time together, especially now that people are out of the house more and have gone back to work, is at dinner time. Everybody, there's usually around 7 people. So if everybody cooks once a week, then there's dinner every night of the week together. Doesn't always happen. It's usually more like 4 or 5 times a week.
But it is our main community time.
And the house dinners are always vegetarian, but like Ionia, if people individually want to eat meat, some people do. People sign up to cook by just writing on we just have a thing on the fridge. Ellen prints out new papers every month with the dates, and people sign up for when they want to cook, when they're going to be out, so you have a sense of how many people you're cooking for and if anyone's going to be in the guest room. And it works really well. Looking to the future, we might one day be part of like a larger network. I've been talking to the Community Land Trust in Somerville about the potential down the line integration. The Somerville Community Land Trust just acquired their first property in Somerville, but it's right around the block. So we could be next, because that would sort of provide a legal structure for us down the line. I'm actually very excited for FIC's course on like legal ways to have a community, because right now we are a little bit, it's Ellen owns the house and that's it. And the city, I think, thinks we're 2 units, because I don't think we're allowed to have this many people in 1 unit, but don't tell anyone. So hopefully as we look to the future, we can have it's worked well for 35 years, but there is nothing that like formally makes it us like a group. We have no legal. It is just a yeah, I'll drop my email in the chat, and people can email me if they want to come by or if they just have questions. But yeah.
Okay, great. Wow. Well, it's all very interesting. It's been amazing how you have had so much turnover over your time, but still have this community spirit. And and I would love if folks have questions, please put them in the Q&A box or even raise your hand. Would love to hear some other voices. Great. Thank you for putting your email. And it's good that you have a guest room. So if people want to try things out, they can come visit and get in touch with you. And I'm curious, how do you make decisions? You mentioned that you use consensus for accepting new members. Do you generally make decisions based on consensus?
I think so. I mean, we don't have another mechanism, so I would say yeah. We definitely don't vote. I think some of them come up by default. So somebody had access to a hot tub and we were all thrilled. So there wasn't like a whole discussion about the cost of water, the cost of heat. Everybody was like, "Ooh,
sounds good." And if someone had we are, like I said, small enough that we do operate more like you and your roommates might operate, where it is less formal and more consensus. And if somebody has an objection, then it becomes a discussion at that point. We definitely had to work through this process a lot during COVID, figuring out like, that was definitely the period that I've lived here, and I've only lived here for 3 years, but the period where we had the most sort of formal decision making, because we had to decide on what were our policies, because obviously individual people's decisions made, could have the possibility to really strongly impact everybody. Yes. So we did have sort of more regular meetings where people would sort of propose more specific policies and we would all agree or try to alter them.
And I think another, this is pretty informal, but so 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we had a housemate who was my age. And when he moved in, I think we thought he was healthy. And then he developed cancer and this is an awful story in many ways. But we somehow decided, this is like maybe Alec can track this, that we each had 1 day a week where we were responsible for checking in with him, bringing in food, seeing if he needed laundry done, etc. And I don't remember a big process. I just remember everybody took this on. His family was beyond grateful. His neighborhood, he was a local person, his neighborhood friends were. And it was quite wonderful, but I don't know how that decision was made. It just
Yeah, we
True.
definitely, I mean, this was during COVID also, which complicated things. It was, he passed away a little less than a year ago. So it was like in the last, it was a year ago for about a year that this was sort of a consideration. And at that time, we were trying to meet to come up with policies. And I think we did weave into those, like, what are we going to do about this? We occasionally met with his daughter, who didn't live locally, but was very involved in his healthcare decisions. Yeah, it was, again, a little bit more like, for example, like his neighborhood friends who had just come together and decided we're going to set up a system for which days we drive him to the doctors. Was more like that than like the official policy of a place like Ionia. But because we're more than like 3 people, we can't just completely let things roll themselves out. We do have to, when things come up, have meetings and discuss it and make sure that everybody sort of verbally agrees when we're making a big decision, like related to people's end of life care and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet that you were able to come together in that way. And sounds like you have an easy way of making decisions as a group.
He was home until days before he died.
Oh yeah,
He
yeah.
went to the hospital. It was really the last few days.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we realized what big decisions we were making.
It was definitely things happened fast. We were all still a little bit in, the COVID shock. But I think it was a good example of how, and again, like Ellen is also a good example of this, of how intergenerational living can be beneficial both for young people and for older people. Right. We, like on the younger side, have learned so much from Van, who was the roommate who passed away, and from Ellen about so many things. And then we like get things off high shelves for them. So
you might have figured out from the photos how short I am.
I'm also short, so it's not me. It's not me who gets things off the high shelves. The tall people.
But people drive me places. They carry, things up the stairs. I mean, there's a variety of physical helping.
Yeah, it's also allowed, is a way that allows, I think if houses like this were a little bit more common and a little more intergenerational, a lot of houses like this in Somerville are mostly young people. I think it's a good way for people to age in place, because like we mentioned, Van was local, had lived in Somerville for a very long time and had a lot of deep roots here, and actually had gone and lived in New Hampshire for a year, but wanted to come back. But it is hard when you're a single person to find especially an older single person, to find a living situation you can afford in the city. And I think this was a really great opportunity to, pay a reasonable rent and have roommates who you could talk to and who could help you out. So
yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, the affordability and support that community living gives is some of the best benefits. And it's great you're so plugged in with the network there and the community land trust and these other housing co-ops around. That's cool. I'm curious. So in my travels and conversations with different communities, and even in the community where I live in Vermont, a lot of the tensions seem to be around the founder maybe having more ownership or ultimate responsibility for the community, but it doesn't sound like it's been such a big deal for you. Or I'm curious, why do you think, what are the qualities, Ellen, that maybe you have in your personality or things, the way you've gone about things, that's created just an easy atmosphere?
I don't know. I have very little interest in being in charge of anything in my world.
Yeah, it's a good example of someone who wants to be a leader maybe isn't the best person to be the leader. But Ellen was a teacher, and I think that she has a lot of the assertiveness of being a teacher, while also the sort of step back and let people do what they need to do, which I think has been helpful. I mean, we have had it in the sense that, like, at the end of the day, Ellen is the one who owns the house, who's legally responsible for the house, who has to pay the taxes and all of that stuff. And like, there was a time in the past where she had to like ask people to leave. This was before my time, because it was like a concern. It
They
was
stopped paying. I had several people living here who completely stopped paying, and I couldn't afford the house. I mean, rent is very cheap for some.
Yeah, we really only cover Ellen's mortgage. So that's another thing, it doesn't feel like a landlord relationship because Ellen
I'm not making money.
Ellen is not making any money off of it, and we see the books and we know that. So it's I think if Ellen was making any amount of money off of this or was like very interested in having an outsized control over her environment, I think things could have gone very differently. I think there are few people who fall into that exact personality category. And I think we got lucky.
Yeah.
Not lucky because you started it. But.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. That makes sense. And if you do go down the route of the community land trust, is that then a structure that may enable the community in the house to continue to be a community in the long term?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea. Because there is no like I don't know. There is no next step of succession or anything. So something like the land trust buying the land and us as a house, like incorporating in I don't know, land trusts are kind of confusing, but like being the owners of the house would provide us like a legal path forward that isn't completely reliant on Ellen.
Gotcha. And Allie, I'm curious, how long are you envisioning staying in the community, or do you not know?
I'm actually moving. So I actually technically right now do not live here. My partner lives here and I live down the street with my sister. But I'm moving back in 2 weeks. And I've stayed, I mean, I still sleep here almost half the time and I stay involved.
Gotcha.
So I'm definitely have made the decision, a recommitment to come back. So definitely for quite a bit. I mean, I am only 25, so it is hard to say what my future brings. But I think both my partner and I, if we sort of stay together and have children, would imagine raising our children in a way like Ellen raised hers. I don't think either of us would want to live as we were raised, which is in a single family home in a suburban area. So I can see a world in which we stay indefinitely.
It's unbelievably easy. Do you have children?
No, not yet.
Unbelievably easier to raise children in the community. I mean, there's no comparison. And I realized my older daughter has a toddler and is having another kid next week, I think. And I go out and visit and I watch her and I realize I never had the things that she struggles with. You know, if the kid had been fussy for hours, whatever, we would just hand her to another adult who would go off and do something. But, you know, I never had the experience of raising children in a one family house. And I don't think I would have liked it nearly as much.
Yeah, I think most people assume that like this is the sort of thing that people do in their 20s, and then like when they, I don't know, get a partner and have children, they would leave. I think people, I'm sure my parents assumed that of me, but I don't think when from the inside that feels like that makes any sense. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question. I don't
Hooked
plan
on
to leave
community.
anytime soon. Not only because it's hard to live in Somerville if you don't look like this.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so true. Once you're living in community, you realize just how much sense it makes.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to imagine, why would I go back to living on my own, or, raising kids alone, or any of that. So yeah, that's good. Mm. Okay. All right. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time and for sharing about your community. And it's really great to learn about these different models, whether it's something, more structured and rural, like Ionia, where they created this whole hall and they've been, raising their own food and all of that, to you all in a more urban environment and smaller, and just making decisions together and navigating COVID. And it's really wonderful to see the diversity in our intentional communities network. So yeah, wishing you all the best from here. And thank you everyone who has been listening in. And we do these virtual tours every month. So tune in again next month to learn about more communities.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
having us.